What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be going over the BIOS on the Gigabyte X99P-SLI. Now, Gigabyte has gone with sort of a three-way BIOS, like I like to call it, and this might actually be the last motherboard that we're going to see this three-way BIOS because they sort of gave up on it. With Z170, we saw Gigabyte go back to their default UEFI BIOS, so this again might just be the last board that we see this. So when you boot up your system and you go into the BIOS for the first time, you should be greeted by this, which is the startup guide, and this should help you kind of set certain things that you know maybe you're not familiar with a BIOS or you're not really sure what you're doing. This allows you to go in and change things very quickly in this really easy to use interface, as you can see here. So we can set up fast boot, we can change our system time, set up security, go over the different SATA controller, go over your boot sequence, your startup options, and you can actually set your defaults. And again, when you hover over things, it kind of tells you, you can see there on the far left side, it tells you what it's going to do. So again, if we go into SATA controller, you can see if it's enabled or disabled, and you can set up your mode, either IDE, AHCI, or RAID. So this is sort of the startup guide. That's all it is. Again, as I said in my other videos about this BIOS, is that the one thing that's missing in the startup guide is your XMP profile. That's one of the main things that you would go ahead and set when you go into your BIOS. A lot of the other companies in their BIOS, in their sort of startup guide or their easy menu, they have the XMP profile. Here it's non-existent for some reason. I'm not sure why, but that is basically it for the startup guide. It's pretty easy to go through, has some of the main things, so if you're not that fine-tuned and going into a BIOS, you can get to those settings and change them. Now if you go ahead and hit F2, that brings you to the basic BIOS, or the sort of, I guess you would call it the default BIOS. This is the BIOS that Gigabyte has gone back with on their Z170 boards, which I'll go over in just one second. But if you hit F2, we'll go over and we'll get to the actual HD BIOS, which is really nice. You can see it has that nice bigger resolution. Everything looks really cool. You can see all your CPU information, your memory information, all of your other system information up here. You can see your voltage and fan speeds and temperatures in real time. And this was great. When this first got announced a couple years ago, this is really awesome, but it just seems like they left something out of this BIOS. It does have a lot of the main settings, but not everything is there. And it's just kind of, I don't know, it's just like, it looks like it was like 80% done or something like that. You do have all of your settings for your, your CPU, and you can set your frequencies here. If you go into memory, you can set your XMP profile and your different timings and things like that. Obviously with voltage, you can change all that around on your different voltages controls. And if we go into miscellaneous, you can do stuff. But like some of the other stuff that should be in this is not in it for some reason. It's just missing. They didn't add it in, and this is, I guess, just a better way of doing all of your overclocking and stuff in a better looking BIOS. But all the other settings for your system just like aren't there for some reason. And you can have this like performance tab that has all of the performance based things that you want to change, your standard tab, and then you can actually name these tabs yourself. Again, this is a really great way to do it, but it just looks like it hasn't been completed. There's still a lot of settings that aren't here. So if you want to see the settings that aren't there and really dive deep into the BIOS, you have to go all the way back and you have to go into the default BIOS, which we go into here just by hitting F2 again. And this is your default BIOS, and this is everything that you're going to need to change all of your settings and do your overclocking and fine-tune your system. So first we'll go into the MIT current status, and this shows you the status of your CPU and your memory and gives you all of the information that you want. Advanced frequency settings, this is where you're going to go ahead and set your frequency settings. As you can see, we have everything on auto, but I can go ahead and easily change this if I want. Now I can change it by going up or down. I can actually type it in too. Say I want to overclock to say 4 gigahertz, type in 40, and I can do it. I can also use the keyboard and just type in auto to go back to auto. So it's really easy to use, and it makes it really simple. If you go into CPU core settings, of course, this is all of our different CPU specific settings for our CPU. So you can go in and change all these around if you want. Go back, and memory settings, of course, this is all of our settings for our memory. This is where you can enable and disable your XMP profile. You can set all of your timings in here as well. Advanced voltage settings, this is all your voltage settings. So you can change your different load light calibrations and everything like that. You know, your CPU core voltages, your chipset voltage, and of course your DRAM voltage. So you can change all that, especially if you're overclocking. Very, very helpful. PC health status is your real-time feed of everything that's going on inside your system. You can see, you know, your temperatures, your voltages, your fan speeds, all of that fun stuff you can go ahead and see here. And your miscellaneous settings, not much really there. If we go over to system information tab up here, this just gives you all of our information on our motherboard. So the product name, BIOS name, BIOS version. So if you want to see if you're running a newer BIOS or something like that, you can see which BIOS version you're running. BIOS features here, this is like all of your boot options and things like that. So you can go in here and set your different boot options and how you want it to go and all of that. Windows 8 specific features are here as well. If we go to peripherals, this is everything that's on the board. So your initial display output, you can actually set which graphics card you want to be your initial display output. Your audio LED you can set, and you can actually do this in the software as well that Gigabyte provides, but you can change this, and it looks like you can change the color too, which is actually pretty cool. So you can change the hue color on the LED here, and you can turn off legacy USB support. Also, you can set up stuff for your Ethernet, so different Ethernet specific settings and Thunderbolt specific settings as well. So this does have that Thunderbolt 3 controller, so you have a lot of different things that you can set up in there. And we'll go out of there, and we will go into chipset, and this is everything to do with the chipset. So this is your storage configuration and all that. So, you know, you can set up your different SATA controllers and your all the different ports you can configure to whatever you may want. Again, this stuff is missing in the HD BIOS for some odd reason. It's not there. Neither is the Thunderbolt stuff either. So it's weird that stuff's not there. You know, different SATA stuff that you can set up here. All of that kind of cool stuff. And then power management, this is all your different things you can set up for power. And then you also have just your save and exit. In your save and exit, which I do like to see, is you do have your boot override. So say you want to install Windows from a flash drive, instead of setting your boot device priority to the flash drive, you can just do boot override, so that when Windows restarts, you don't have to go back in and change your boot device. It will just boot to the hard drive right after that. So this makes it easier. I always like to see that if I'm booting from a flash drive. This just makes it so much easier. And we have the option to load or optimize defaults. So if you mess something up and you're like, oh, what did I change? What did I do? You can actually go ahead and just load the optimized defaults, and you're good to go. We also have QFlash, which I should be able to go in here, and this allows you to update your BIOS. You can save your BIOS as well. So if you have a BIOS that's saved, and you know this is like your overclocking BIOS or something like that, you can actually save your BIOS. So it makes it really easy. I do really like this BIOS, or the default BIOS. Again, the quick start menu is cool and everything. I'll go back to it. We'll go back to through the HD, and then we should go to quick start. So the startup guide or quick start menu is great, but it's just missing a couple things that I think should be there. But it's great for first-time users of you know, this type of BIOS. And then again, if we go back to the HD BIOS, the HD BIOS would be great. It would be really awesome, but it's just missing a lot of those specific settings that aren't here for some reason. I think that's kind of why Gigabyte gave up on it. That's why we didn't see it in Z170. So we don't have that. But again, out of all three of these BIOSes, my favorite would be, of course, the default BIOS. It's really easy to use, and it has all of your settings, and it works really great. So if you have any questions about this BIOS, about the HD BIOS, about the startup guide, or anything like that, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. Until next time, catch you guys later.